We continue now at the top of Daf Chav Dalet Amud Beis in Meseches Sotah. This is Sotah Daf 24b. The Gemara is continuing to explain what does Rabbi Yonasan learn from Ish. What does that come to include? That also comes to include the wife of a Shiamum. That's a person who's mentally ill. The point is all of these husbands who are not able to issue the warning themselves. So Ish comes to include and say that Bezdin can issue the warning on their behalf. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Yoshia, Hai Tachas Isha Mayavidle. Now Rabbi Yoshia, what does he do with Tachas Isha? Again, Rabbi Yonasan used Tachas Isha as an exclusion, and Rabbi Yoshia did not. So what does he do with that second Tachas Isha? And the Gemara answers, Mi boy le lahakish ish li isha v'isha li ish. That's in order to compare the man to the woman and the woman to the man. And Rashi explains first, Hai Tachas Isha Basra. That's the latter Tachas Isha, again, that was used by Rabbi Yonasan. Ha'amr B'sof HaParsha Zos Torah Saknos says at the end of the Parsha, and he uses it Lahakish Isha L'Ish. It's to compare the woman to the man and vice versa. Braisi B'Shili Pirk, and this is a Brais at the end of the Parak. V'asam Mefarish L'Mayilchas. The Gemara over there will explain for what halacha we're referring to when we talk about comparing the Ish L'Isha and the Isha L'Ish. And the Gemara continues, Ela Taima D'Chsivi Hanikroi. Now the only reason is because these various psukim are written, and as Rashi explains, Hanikroi D'Mimati Arusa. We have these psukim that talk about excluding an Arusa. It's only because of the fact that these psukim are there. Halavachi, but if not for that, Hava Amina Arusa Shasi. So I would have thought if not for the exclusion, then an Arusa would drink from the waters. If not for the fact that the pasuk excludes an Arusa, she would drink. But the Gemara says, V'hakiyasar B'yacha Bar Chanina Midoroma. But when Rabbi Acha Bar Chanina came from the south, Asa Va'aisi Masnisa Biyada. He came and he brought a brisa in his hands. He brought the following brisa. The pasuk says, Mi baladei isheich, mi shekadma shchivas ba'al leboel. The only time we talk about a situation of a sotah drinking the water is in a situation where it's mi baladei isheich, meaning when she was with her husband before she was with the boel, before she was with the adulterer. V'lo shekidma shchivas boel leba'al. The sotah does not drink the waters in a situation where she was with the boel before the baal, and that's exactly the situation over here where you're talking about an arusa, a woman who's just betrothed. She was never with her husband, so in any case, she's not going to drink from the waters. That should be automatic. You shouldn't even need a pasuk to exclude her from those waters. And the Gemara says, Amar Rami Bar Chama says, no, mashkachasla, you could find a situation. Kagon Shabala, Aris Bevei Savia. Sometimes you have a situation where the Aris does have relations with her while she's still in the house of her father, so we need to exclude even in that situation the Arusa from drinking the waters, and that's why we have these psukim for that exclusion. But the Gemara continues, but if that's the case, you have to be saying that when we talk about Shomeres Yavam being excluded, it's a similar case to an Arusa. Because again, these are put together in the Mishnah that an Arusa and a Shomeres Yavam, they don't drink from the waters. So we should have a similar case by Shomeres Yavam. The case is, we're talking where the Yavam had relations with her in the house of her father-in-law. But in that situation, so that wouldn't be the case. HaShomeres Yavam Karisla Ishtom Al Yasi. That you're not going to call that a Shomeres Yavam. She's not a waiting yibum in that case. If they actually had relations over here, that's actually his full-fledged wife. Diyamar Rav kana lakol, because Rav said in such a situation where there's this act of relations, it's a full kinyan, she's fully his wife. And the Gemara says, you're right, but we'll have to say, Kishmuel, we'll have to say that we're following here the opinion of Shmuel. If you're going to say that the Shomeres Yavam is excluded and it's a similar situation where they had relations, but it can follow Shmuel. The Amarka Shmuel says, Lo kana elu lidvarim ha'amurim beparsha. If they have relations in that situation, it's not necessarily a full kinyan, it's only a kinyan regarding the items that are mentioned in the parsha, that are mentioned in the Torah. And Rashi explains, Mi bala de ishech, the pasuk again says, Mi bala de ishech mashma shabala nos. Again, it sounds like she was with her husband before she went into the seclusion with the boel. And the Gemara says, well, we need this pasuk mashkachas lo distarach lemuute arusa mikrachrina. The reason why we need another pasuk to exclude arusa, even though an arusa should automatically be excluded because she wasn't with her husband yet. No, there is a case. We don't exclude it automatically. It's a case, let's say, biznus. Let's say there was a situation where the aris did have relations with her while she was in her father's house, meaning it was a situation of znus. So in that situation, we also exclude the arusa from drinking from the waters from that other pasuk. But Beis Chamel la'achar shemeisachav, again talking about Beis Chamel in the house of her father-in-law. The reason why it's the house of her father-in-law, we're talking about a situation after his brother died. So in that situation, now he has relations, but then that should be a full-fledged marriage. Shomeres Yavam Karisla, you call that a shomeres yavam de ka'amritz to lo tishta. You're saying over here that she doesn't drink from the waters. Why not? Ha'ishto mal yasi b'bias nus, because when it comes to shomeres yavam, even a bias nus creates it that it's his full-fledged wife, so she certainly should drink from the waters. De'amar Rav, because Rav said b'yavamas kanal hakol, because Rav said in Yavamas that the kinyan, even in a situation of znus, is a full kinyan. Tetanan habal yavemto ben b'shogeg ben b'mezid dahainu b'znus. Doesn't matter if b'shogeg b'mezid. Doesn't matter if it's a situation of znus. Kana, it is a kinyan. V'yamar Rav kana de mas nisin. When it says kana de katani mas nisin, when the Mishnah says kana lakol means a full kinyan, meaning it's a full marriage. Im kohen hu, meaning if he's a kohen, machila b'truma, then she can eat truma. V'yarsho metamela umashko potra beget below chalitza. All of the halachas that apply when it comes to a person's full-fledged wife. And so therefore, again, according to Rav, this is going to be difficult. Why then are we saying that we're excluding the shomeres yavam if it's a case where she had znus with the brother-in-law? So that's a full-fledged ishus. So why are we excluding her from drinking from the waters? And so the Gemara says, you know why we're excluding her? So the Gemara answers, because we're following Shmuel. Again, Shmuel said that it's not a full kinyan. Keshmuel hadas akra lemuute keshmuel. When we have a pasuk here to exclude this case of shomeres yavam from drinking from the waters, we're also following Shmuel's opinion. Damar lo kan el ledvarim ha'amurim beparshas yivama lokum al shem ochib ben achalaso ulepotra beget. It's not true that it's a full kinyan. It's only a kinyan for certain halachas. For example, in terms of inheritance, it's considered a kinyan. He gets the inheritance. He stands in the place of his brother for inheritance. And also now that they had this act of relation, so then he separates from her using a get. When we say that any amount of bia is going to be a kinyan, miyavama yavo from the pasuk nafkal, and we learn it from the pasuk. The lochsev yavama yikachena lo leisha doesn't say yikachena lo leisha. Ela yavo ala. It says again yavo ala lekachalo leisha v'ashminon de biyaso alea hein lekucheo isha shalo. Again, you see that the bia, that's the ishas hilkach lamidi de itmar b'hach parshas ravinu. Again, according to Shmuel, that's only for the items that are mentioned in that parsha, in those psukim. So in those situations, Ravinu kroni sun halal, that's where we say it's considered a marriage. Avolamidi achrina, but for other items, lav nisuin, it's not considered a marriage. Uma omer b'parsha. And what are the halachas that are mentioned in that parsha? So ptur chalitza al yedei yibum v'yakam al shem achiv sheyorish es nechseyav ve'enachiv chol kenimo. Again, these ideas over here that we talk about, the fact that this yibum says that there's no more chalitza over here. Again, that she leaves with a get, and also again that he stands in the place of his brother in terms of inheritance. But the Gemara continues, if that is the case, that our Mishnah really is following Shmuel, and we said, as we said earlier, our Mishnah also follows Rabbi Yonasan, he's the one that excludes shomeres yavam. So Lema Rav da Amar Rabbi Yoshia, Shmuel da Amar Rabbi Yonasan. So let us suggest that Rav is only following the opinion of Rabbi Yoshia, and Shmuel is following the opinion of Rabbi Yonasan. The machlokas Rav and Shmuel is actually a machlokas between Rabbi Yoshia and Rabbi Yonasan, because again, Rabbi Yoshia is the one that includes the shomeres yavam, and Rabbi Yonasan, he's the one that's like our Mishnah that excludes the shomeres yavam from drinking the waters. And the Gemara says, not necessarily. Amar lach Rav, Rav can say to you, Anoda Amri afilu Rabbi Yonasan. I, who hold again that in a situation of znus by yibum, that it's considered a full-fledged marriage, I can hold even like Rabbi Yonasan that the shomeres yavam is excluded, because mi the itzrich kra lemuuta, from the fact that the pasuk goes ahead and excludes her, mechlal the ishto mal yasi, on the contrary, that implies that really she is considered his full-fledged wife, and nevertheless she is excluded. And Rashi over here says, Lema Rav damar kanala kol Rabbi Yoshia. Rav, who says that when they have an act of znus, that's a full marriage, that's like Rabbi Yoshia. Damar shomeres yavam shos, because again, shomeres yavam drinks, it's like a full wife. Vukimna b'ba'alen, that's a situation like we said, where they had this act of znus, there was this act of relations. And the Gemara says, not necessarily. Again, Rav can say, Anod Amri afilu Rabbi Yonasan, I can go even according to Rabbi Yonasan, v'chol shekain Rabbi Yoshia. Certainly I can go like Rabbi Yoshia, but I can even go according to Rabbi Yonasan. V'had itzrich Rabbi Yoshia l'rebuye me'ishish. And the reason why Rabbi Yoshia has to go ahead and use ishish to include this case, lav dafka, Rashi just points out, so you really don't need a pasuk, because if you're following Rabbi Yoshia, it's a full wife. What do you need a pasuk to include her for? Of course she's going to drink. So that's actually lav dafka. He doesn't actually need a pasuk according to this approach. El asmachta b'alma, it's just an asmachta. Ve'ikar krala eshes cheresh v'shota. And as we said above, you could say that the pasuk is really coming to include the wife of a cheresh and a shota, that the bezin issues the warning on behalf of the husbands that are not able to. But again, the point over here is that you could say, Rav can say that really I follow Rabbi Yonasan, and from the very fact that the pasuk comes along and has to exclude her from drinking from the waters, that implies that she actually is his full-fledged wife. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chafei Amud Aleph.